Will Pokemon cards continue to fall throughout this year in 2025? Someone actually sent me a really interesting question, over on the weekend. The question that was asked was, Jace, recently we have seen big falls happen across the board with the biggest cards from the Scarlet and Violet era. Do I think that things will continue that way with the release of Destined Rivals and, of course, with the hype of the new Black and White set that is dropping out in the summer? Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one, right? Initially, I would say yes. And the reason why I would say yes, especially for the summertime, is normally we see in the summertime things cooling off. I know it sounds weird, summer cooling off, but it does, right? Throughout the summer of the last few years, since I've been, following the Pokemon market, we have seen things in the summertime cool off. Basically, a lot of people are spending their money and doing other things, going on holidays, enjoying the weather, traveling, doing whatever they're doing, spending their money on other stuff. So what ends up happening is product is not being sold that often, the interest isn't there, the demand isn't there, so people start lowering their prices to try and encourage people to buy their product. What you're seeing at the moment when it comes to single cards is the sheer volume of what is being opened. We are seeing, right now anyway, a huge drive on just cracking packs, okay? And on a scale we've really never had before, and that's mainly due to the rip and ship platforms that kind of drive that just absolute frenzy to open up as many packs as humanly possible. Now, when I was doing rip and ships, and at the start of this channel, when we were looking back at 2021, 2022, and like during the pandemic, you did have people that were doing rip and ships. You had some of the larger YouTubers that were doing it, but on a much smaller scale. They maybe had been doing it maybe a couple of times a week. Nothing that crazy, okay? You're seeing people on platforms like Whatnot who are ripping quite literally hundreds, if not thousands, of packs per day on a single stream. And here's the crazy thing, and it's here in the UK. I mean, it might be even more crazier in the US, but I've seen people here in the UK take Journey Together, right? Journey Together dropped. There were people that were ripping open Journey Together, and we're talking hundreds of packs laid out in front of them, and they were ripping through all of them like an absolute degen. Do you know what gets even more crazy is if you take a look at 151, which here in the UK, Blooming Waters didn't even really do anything. Like, it was such a small release. Most people didn't even get hold of one. We didn't get reprints of booster bundles, so 151 has thrived really high in price, right? It's like £13 to £15 a booster pack of 151. It is very, very expensive, right? So then you look at that and you go, okay, it's quite pricey. I've watched streams where they literally have stacks upon stacks upon stacks of 151, and they're ripping through them like no tomorrow. I mean, I watched one stream, and this person must have went through maybe 400-500 packs of 151 in a single stream. And that's just one person. Could you imagine everybody doing it all the time, each day, every day? And that's basically what we're seeing. And now, of course, with a set like 151 and Prismatic, they're a little bit more pricey. But if you take just the normal standard era set, Journey, Surgeon, Destined Rivals, when that comes out, people are going to be ripping through that like no tomorrow. So what ends up happening? All of that stock is being ripped open. All of those singles are getting pulled. People are either selling the singles, they're getting the singles graded, which we're now seeing a huge decline in grading values across the board. PSA, Ace, wherever you want to go, they're falling like crazy. And we're seeing the biggest chase cards fall because, well, they're being opened like no ever before, right? In the past, you did have a lot of people that were holding product. I mean, when I mean holding, I mean investing in product. I think now you are seeing the opposite. You are basically, instead of people buying maybe a couple of booster boxes or a case of booster boxes to keep sealed for the long haul, for that 5, 10, 20 years or whatever it be down the line, okay? Instead, you're getting people who are buying in much larger volumes than maybe a couple of boxes or a case of a particular set on these streams and ripping them like mad, okay? So if you thought that people were holding on to sealed product was a problem and you couldn't find anything, people buying them for these platforms and ripping them like an absolute boss is one of the main reasons why we're seeing single cards fall in price. So will I expect that to continue going into the summer and towards the end of 2025? I do. I actually think we're going to start seeing a lot of Scarlet and Violet era big, massive hit cards continue to fall throughout the summer months. We could be seeing the big Pikachu fall to, $200. Who knows? At this point, it is in the free fall, and we're seeing that with some of the biggest cards. So today we're going to be taking a look at some of the biggest cards here in the UK, so you guys can get an idea. And we're going to see what is happening, and I give you guys my kind of predictions and thoughts, at least throughout the summer, right? And when I mean the summer, I mean up until like kind of when the kids go back to school, so around September. So between now and September, in the next 3 to 4 month time period, where do I expect things to go regarding some of these biggest cards? Okay, so we're on eBay. We're looking at the special illustration rare for the Pikachu to get an idea of what has been going on. So we have raw ones here. So we've got about £200, £208 for the Pikachu. Got some graded ones going around here as well. So you've got some Ace 9s, about 225, 220, 225. So yeah, pretty much you've got PSA 10 here for £770. 240. 240 there. So we're going to look at some sold ones, and we're going to go back and we're going to see how the prices changed throughout, the past couple of months at least. The recently sold, we have here £200, 230, 200 for a PSA 8. We have an Ace 10 for 516. We have a non-graded one here for 177, 193. So yeah, we have quite a lot actually that have been going for under 200. Ace 9 230. Raw, is that a raw one? Yeah, raw one for 240. The price does vary quite heavily. Okay, so we come back to February, so it's a few months ago, just to get an idea of what the prices were back in February. The 280, 325, 295. So what, February was 3 months ago, pretty much beginning of February. So in 3 months, this has gone down from around a £300 card to what, 220? Under 200? So it's dropped about £100 in 3 months, okay? So it's dropped £100 in 3 months, from around 300 to around £200. So where do I expect that to go in the next 3 months? I mean, could it drop another £100 in value? So we could be looking at under £100 card. I don't think we will. I think that this card probably will sell anywhere between maybe 120 and 150. I'm going to push maybe towards the higher end of that and say that it might find its bottom, as it were, at probably around £150. I don't see this dropping below 100. I really don't. The fact is, we've seen it go from 300 in February, and we're now seeing it in May, and it's about 200 or under 200, depending on the condition and everything. That's a huge drop. That is a massive drop. And, could it go even further? Absolutely. And I think it probably will. So it probably sit on average at around £150. That's my prediction, I think, by the end of the summer. And of course, then it will probably start trickling up, but it is falling. And then we've got the Greninja. So again, another big, massive card. Recently sold, £200, £210 there. Let's see if we can find anything else. This is the Greninja from Shroud of Fable. We want to see the one from Masquerade, of course. The 212, 208. So we're seeing a PSA 10 one, best offer accepted at around 500. £200 there raw, 225 in a PSA 9. So, not that much. So around 220 is probably roughly the cost of the Greninja. Okay, and I believe that's fallen. We're going to look and see what it was a few months back as well. But we're looking around about on average 220. I mean, it was 260 there. But 220 seems to be the average for a raw price one. So again, we're going to go back to about February. So this was, nearly 3 months ago. We're looking at 234. That one was 105. I'll read description, so probably got some damage to it. 240, 200, 240, 220, 276, 330, 220. So it has dropped a little bit. I would say the average here, we are getting some here at 220, but we are getting some at 240, 270, 240, 240. So it's dropped a little bit. So the Greninja has actually held quite well. So this could be a card that if you're looking at picking it up, it might not be the worst time to look again. It could drop a little bit throughout the summer, but it's holding strong. It is doing very well compared to the Pikachu. This Greninja is actually doing okay. Next up, we've got the Bubble Mew, of course, from Powered Day and Fate. So we've got some graded ones here. This has dropped massively in graded. PSA 10, £690. I know that sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but it was like a grand, right? I remember going to the London card show. I think it was like £900 to £1,000. So it has dropped quite significantly. Let's see if we can get some raw ones going here. So we've got 210, 270, 240. Of course, the conditions are going to dictate the price. 215 roughly, 240. 190, so that one's a lot cheaper. The prices do vary on this one, but I'm going to say the average is probably around 220 would be my prediction, my thought process on the raw price. I mean, it does vary obviously due to condition, but 220 seems to be, or I would say, the average. Okay, we're going to go back to February again, about 3 months ago, so we can see what's going on. See, PSA there, 800. That's already dropped 100 in 3 months. So Mew, we have 250 raw, 280, 300, 300. So it has dropped quite significantly. I mean, even when we look at these prices, PSA 10 was 770, interesting. But overall, I mean, 250, 245, 300. So it's probably around that 280 to 300 range. So it's probably dropped around about 60 to 80 pounds over the past 3 months. It's an interesting one because Paladin Fate is getting hard to get hold of. It is expensive. And on top of that, it's not an easy card to pull. So for me, I think that this one again could potentially hold pretty well. We could see a dip throughout the summer months, of course. So you could be seeing this card for around £200. It'll probably drop maybe by about 10-20%. You could probably see it and pick it up probably around 200, which I think is a very, very good price. As we can see, it is very, very expensive and still fetches a hefty price point, really, in a PSA 10. I mean, yes, it was 800, but still going for 700 now is very, very good. So yeah, that's something to look for, I think, with the Bubble Mew, that it could drop roughly, around 200, 180 to 200. So it has that potential, and then, will bounce back in the future. But in the summer, it's a good time to pick some stuff up. Next up, we've got the Umbreon from Prismatic. This will be an interesting one because obviously it's a very, very expensive card. We have here raw 720. We have an ace 9 for 680. That label looks amazing. We have an ace 10 for 1.25k or 26k. Very, very good. Raw 800. Wow, the prices do vary on this one. 680. You have a PSA 9 for 800. Raw 670. Another raw one for 950. Wow, that really does vary. Ace 9 for 670, 775, 850. These are literally all in a matter of the past week or two, and the prices vary massively. I mean, look, we have one card here, we have one version here, raw, which is 775, and you've got a 950 one there. You've got one that's 680 and 950. So the average of this, I mean, I would probably say the average of a raw one is probably about £800. If I would have to, I mean, no, but look, 670, 550, 720. This is mental. PSA 10 was 2.4k. Damn, so that gives you an example, right? PSA 10, 2.4k. We did have an ace 10, right? Where was the ace 10? I'm pretty sure we had an ace 10, didn't we? How much was the ace 10 going for? 2.4k. Holy smokes. So I don't think, yeah, we did have an ace 10. Half the value. There you go. If you want an example between the two different grading companies, you might have to wait a century for it to come back from PSA, but it's worth a lot more in a 10. I mean, 1.6k there. Look, I mean, the raw price is all over the show. I would probably say raw price between 750 to 800 would be my estimated price point. So we're going back in February. We're going back in a few months. This would have been not long after Prismatic came out. Again, I mean, the price is a little bit more consistent. I mean, we got 800 there, 820, 780, 730. Wow, someone managed to pull a whole bunch there. We have here 1.3k plus a Leafeon. Okay, so it does come with something else. So 900, 950. So it has actually 950 there. So it has dropped. I would say it probably dropped to around about maybe 100 to 150 pound in value, I would say, over the past 3 months. I mean, look, we have an ace 10 there for 2k. We just saw one for 1.6. That dropped by £400. I wonder if there's a PSA. I wonder if someone's got a PSA 10. Here we go. That's a PSA 9 for 950. But yeah, you're looking at raw prices back then, 1.25k, 1k. Holy smokes. I'm going to see if we can find a PSA 10 that was a while ago. Ace 10, 1.9k. So it has dropped, even in the graded prices, that the Umbreon has fallen quite substantially. But there isn't many sold. I haven't found any in a PSA 10. There we go. So PSA 10, this was back in March, was 2.5k. So yeah, big pricey card. I think, 2.3k, there you go, in a PSA 10 there. So I would say the graded is probably not that bad, but the raw price for sure. And I mean, looking at these raw prices, they have dropped from where they were 3 months ago. I expect the Umbreon to fall even more, especially with reprints coming as well of Prismatic. Yes, it's a tough card to pull, but there's just going to be more of them out there. There is going to be a lot more opened, and I think we will see the Umbreon fall. But where does it lie in the future? I think it's going to do very well, but I think the summer will be a good time to pick it up. I think we could see it drop. I mean, even we've seen it under 100, under £700. It's a lot of money, but it's still a lot cheaper. And the final one we're going to look at today is everyone's favorite fire lizard, is the Charizard, of course, from 151. This one here is going to be an interesting one. So we have PSA 9s around 190. Raw, we're looking at about 180, 170, 170 basically with shipping. 195 and a 9, so pretty much 9s are pretty much dead. So we have 155 raw. Ace 9 was 200. That's interesting. That's way more than, oh no, it was not way more, but a little bit more than PSA 1s. Again, prices, I would say raw prices of this one, you're probably seeing around about 170 average for the Charizard from 151. So PSA 10 here, £600. That has fallen. It's going to be interesting to see what they were a few months ago. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing some 9s roughly around 200. That's an Ace 10 at 500. So there's a comparison between the two. If you want to see between Ace and PSA, PSA is £600. Ace is only £500. But again, you are looking at the turnaround time and things like that. I think ultimately, though, that big price difference is worth the wait. A big card like Charizard, I would personally go PSA, just like we saw with the Umbreon and so on and so forth. But yeah, 175. 185, so probably around 170, 180. Probably, yeah, that was really cheap. Very poor condition. Okay, yeah, probably 170, 180. Anyway, back to February once again. Good old February. About 3 months ago. So, but let's look at here. We have 220 raw. We have a PSA 10 here for 750. So again, we just saw that drop a little bit. 260 raw. 160. I guess that's not the best condition. 210. Let's see if we can find any more raw. 200. 187. Really, the Charizard hasn't really moved a huge amount. Maybe dropped by like 10%. Like it was like just over £200, 200, 220. But yeah, I would say it's probably dropped about 10% in value over the past 3 months, which actually isn't too bad. So 151, like I said before, with English 151, it's tough. It's actually really expensive to get here in the UK. So even though people open up so much 151, the poise are pretty good. I do expect the Charizard to hold quite well. So again, you could see it drop. Maybe it might drop to 150. You might be able to pick up for 150, 160. Another 10% drop would be quite nice throughout the summer. And again, I would think that would be pretty good. But yeah, big money in a 10. So if you can get one, make sure to get one in a really, really good condition. All right, I said Zard was the last one. We've got to do the Moonbreon. We have to. All right, so 900. I haven't seen this in ages. £925 for a raw one. Oh no, that's tag. It looked raw because didn't see. Okay, that's a tag 8. Okay. So PSA 9 and 1k, PSA 10 on one of those, £2,100. Good lord, that's a lot of money. Wow, look at that. Look, Ace 10, 1.4k. An Ace 10 is not much different to a raw one. What the hell? Raw one, 1.4k. I mean, it's literally like £50 difference. That is wild. Then we have PSA 10 here for 1.8k, Ace 10 for 1.5. Okay, so that must have been like a really good one for 1.4k, because look at this. 870 damage, 312. Few PSA ones here. PSA 9, PSA 10, best offer accepted. PSA 10, 1.8k roughly. Yeah, 1.8k including shipping. So that one's a big, huge price difference. Even in the graded prices, like PSA 10s are like so weird. We have here like 925, 900. 770, 1000. So let's say £900. Let's just throw one out there. Let's just say £900 raw, give or take. Of course, it massively varies, but I would say let's go with £900 raw. That seems to be, because look, we've seen one raw there, look, 1.2k. We're seeing others that are like 900. So yeah, I mean, look, 2.6k in a PSA 10. What the hell's going on here? So we go back to good old February. So a few months ago, raw 1.1k, 1.2k raw. So wow, this has dropped massively. So this was like 1.6k raw. Holy smokes. So we just saw some that were like 800. We saw some that were not like, but already 900. Umbreon's dropped loads. That is mental. 2.5k in a 10. Wow. 1.2k raw. So yeah, this has dropped quite a bit. The Moonbreon has dropped maybe like, well, like $300, pounds, sorry, £200 to £300 in the space of 3 months. Could it fall even more? It's kind of weird because there's a lot of Moonbreons around. There's a lot of graded Moonbreons around. It's just so expensive. I do think it is a really good collector piece though. It really is a nice centerpiece card to have, especially slabbed as well. But my god, that was silly expensive. Has dropped though, but still. Mad price differences. There you have it, guys. That's what's been going on right now. So my thoughts and predictions in the summer, I do think a lot of cards will fall in value, especially the top big cards. Like I've been saying, you're going to see it. I mean, you've already seen, we did look at Join Together, but you've been seeing a lot of card prices of that fall like crazy. Look at the Pikachu. That's dropped quite substantially. I would say across the board, a lot of cards have dropped roughly around 20% over the past 3 months. Like I said, the summer we normally see a lull period, so you could be seeing maybe another 10 to 20% drop, or even more for some of the biggest top cards throughout the Scarlet and Violet era. Keep an eye on it, guys. If you're looking at picking up some for your collections, you're there, like maybe you're holding off thinking, oh, I want to pick up these big cards. Should I get them now? Should I wait for the summer? Honestly, I would probably wait for the summer and go from there. June, July, August would probably be a really good time. And of course, Destined Rivals comes out. Expect a lot of card prices to fall, similar to what we had with Join Together as well. So keep that in mind, guys, with Destined Rivals, and of course with the black and white set dropping in the summertime as well. It'll be interesting to see if we get that real big hype or not. I don't think we will. I just don't see it being on that same level as like Prismatic or even Destined Rivals. I think it might go along the road of maybe a Join Together, maybe a little bit less crazy, but you know, still relatively crazy. If you made this fun of the video and you've enjoyed it, make sure to smash the like button and make sure to subscribe for more Pokemon content. And guys, let me know your thoughts about what's going on. Is there any big chase cards that you're looking to pick up? Me, for my personal collection, I really like the Greninja. I don't have the Greninja from Twilight. It is a beautiful card, and I do want it. The same goes for Charizard from Palladium Fates. I still don't have that yet. We didn't look at it today, but that is a very, very nice big chase card that I really want to get from Palladium Fates. I've opened up a lot of Palladium Fates, and I haven't been exactly lucky, unfortunately. But those are two real big cards that I want to get. I'm not a huge fan of you know, stuff like the Charizard from 151. I prefer the Blastoise. I think the Blastoise looks awesome, and the Zapdos as well. But yeah, some beautiful cards, and like the Umbreon from Prismatic, that one's fallen as well. For me, I actually prefer the Sylveon and the Leafeon from Prismatic. I think they look absolutely amazing. So that's it from me, guys, in today's video. Of course, if you want to watch more Pokemon content, make sure to click the video on the screen and hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You guys are legends, and I'll see you in the next one.